Are you struggling to conceive? You have options, and at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group, we'll make sure you have the guidance and support you need. PREG is known for individualized fertility care that's unique to every patient. We take the time to provide a reassuring and empowering experience because we believe that you deserve nothing less. Let us help you on your journey to parenthood. Visit us at pregonline.com to learn more. Get the guidance and support you need at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group.
New on Curiosity Stream.
I'm James Burke. I'm going to take you on a journey through time.
James Burke's visionary series returns, reimagined for our time.
Now, this is all uncharted territory.
The Washington Post hails Burke as one of the most intriguing minds in the Western world. The New York Times raves he careens from one great moment in history to another.
Where do we want to go from here?
Experience all new connections.
So what's the next connection?
With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at curiositystream.com.
Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers, happy Monday. It's September 5th. Hope you had a really good weekend. It's a long weekend for a lot of you guys. I've enjoyed a few days of sleeping in myself. Kids go back to school tomorrow, back to normal. So we are going to cover the Zulema police interview for April 19th of 2021, since the last episode covered Alex's death. But first, want to give a big thank you to both Justine and Diane for their very generous donations. I'm very grateful. Thank you very, very much. And music fact of the day, Freddie Mercury would have turned 76 years old today. And a couple of interesting facts about Freddie is he was a baggage handler at London Heathrow Airport right before he joined Queen. I believe their lead singer quit and they found him. So, and also, this is crazy, his headboard was an actual piano. And so he would wake up from a dream with a song idea or a melody in his head, and he would just flip his hands. He was double jointed. So like he could go back and flip his hands all the way back and play it on that piano. And so some of the passages from Bohemian Rhapsody were actually written that way. Insane. Super cool. You have to wonder what Freddie Mercury would be like in 2022. He was such a zany and fun guy and just full of energy. And I think he would have been on TikTok and all that stuff. I could imagine it. One little clarification. I think some people got confused on the last episode. Okay, so Samantha is Chad's sister-in-law because that's Tammy's sister. Then we have Heather Daybell, who is his sister-in-law from his brother. I do believe, as far as I can tell, the sister-in-law that he referred to in that phone call with Melanie Gibb, where he says she's spreading conspiracy theories and she's a dark spirit, I believe he was talking about Samantha. If I'm wrong, let me know, but that's about as much as I could figure out. All right, so we're going to get, here's the new merch I am designing. This is why I am doing this a little early today. You guys have asked for a very long time now for some new stuff with specific things on it. This is not final. I'm just playing around right now. There's going to be other things, other ideas. And so I'm going to work on this a lot today. It's rainy here. It's yucky. But the one thing I will do is I'm going to make each style available in V-neck, unisex, hoodies, things like that. I'm going to change up some of the font colors, font styles, and just have a lot for you guys to choose from. At the bottom there, you can see a little Sherlock. It says, what you know, Sherlock, and he's playing with the logo. But I'm going to modify that a little bit. I think the fonts need to be a little bigger. So I just wanted to let you guys know I'm working on this. I'm hoping in the next couple of days to have the store up and running. And yeah, so let's get started. All right. The thing that I found very interesting about the very beginning of this interview is Zulema comes in and really quickly takes a ring off of her finger. I don't know if it was maybe her wedding ring from Alex, but she kind of very, very quickly, and tries to be a little discreet about it, takes that ring off that one dude standing up right there. You can see, I think he's watching her, but I thought that was really interesting. And these are just pictures The top one is right from the beginning as soon as they walk in. The bottom one is during the interview. This episode really won't have many other pictures than the two I just showed. So the investigator asked if she's tired of talking to them, and Zulema said her mind is like an aquarium, and you put your hand on the bottom and whoosh, all this stuff comes up and it brings up all kinds of stuff, memories and connections, and then you start beating yourself up like, how could I have gotten involved with people like this? He said they need some clarifying information about things that have come up. And they had re-interviewed Melanie Gibb also on April 30th of 2021. I don't think we've covered all that, so I'll go back. We'll do an episode on that. So Vince from Fremont County was there in the interview room, and then Zulema's attorney. And when asked if she's getting back to normal, she says yes, except for when reporters reach out. She says she has not spoken to the media, and she, I believe, maybe is the only one of the main players that hasn't spoken out. I think she called the cops on some YouTuber that showed up at her house. So the investigator says that they've been going over reports she gave to Gilbert PD and says some of her statements she gave them doesn't match what she's told the Chandler Police Department. And he wants to clarify why she told them something different. She asks if this is about the day Alex died, and he said yes. He asked if she remembers anything she told Gilbert PD about Lori and Chad, and she said there's a time frame of 2 weeks that's very foggy for her. But that night specifically, she remembers certain things, but she doesn't remember a timeline. She doesn't know the order of how things happened. And I'm assuming this is the night Alex died. Her lawyer says they've never seen the statements that she's made to Gilbert, by the way. So the investigator said they're trying to eliminate some defense strategies that Lori and Chad's attorneys will bring up during trial. And part of this is they need to try to pin this on others to make Zulema not look as credible in case she needs to testify. We know she's going to testify. So they want to be sure what she's told both agencies match up. One thing is when she said she last talked to Chad and Lori, he says that she told Gilbert she had no idea how to get in touch with Lori and Chad when they asked her who Alex was on the phone with. And he asked why she told them that. Zulema wonders why she would have told them that because he was on the phone with Lori and Alex. He says you also told them you had only met Lori a couple of times before she moved and you hadn't seen her since she moved a few months ago and she didn't think Lori was married. Of course, Zulema doesn't remember saying that. Her lawyer asks if she did or didn't know Lori was married at the time. And Zulema said, yeah, I knew she was married because she had sent me pictures of when they got married. And she said, let me put it this way. I saw the pictures on the beach, them both dressed in white. They were dancing and kissing. So I assumed it was a wedding ceremony. Her lawyers asked the investigators about the statement Zulema hadn't seen Lori since she moved. So the investigator and the lawyer start talking kind of amongst themselves. And the investigator says, we know Zulema had went up to Rexburg. And her lawyer says, I wonder if she means since they moved to Hawaii. The investigator said she didn't know what state Chad and Lori lived in. He said things like that are what the defense are going to ask you. And he's right. The defense is going to grab onto any inconsistency and try to discredit her. So she said when they left Rexburg, they didn't tell anyone where they were going, not even Alex, because he asked them. They wouldn't disclose where they were. And the investigator said, you had no idea they were in Hawaii. And she shakes her head no. He asked about the times they had a conference call, and she said she only found out they were in Hawaii when she saw it on the news. So he says back in the report, they talked to her and Melanice about going to Hawaii after they were married and asked if that's not true. She said she doesn't remember when this was, but she remembers them saying that. So she looks at her phone, and the investigator says their timeline has that in November of 2019, and they go missing in December. You had conference calls with them the first week in December, you and Alex both, and Melanie Pulowski. Ian was also on the phone. Zulema finds something on her phone, and she says on November 9th, Lori texted her and Alex both, this could be you, come to Hawaii. This was the same day she sent those wedding pictures. As we know, they were married November 5th, 2019, Lori and Chad. Zulema said she responded to her with scripture because they were still trying to get her to move. Her lawyer said this was the wedding in Hawaii, but they came back and vanished around Thanksgiving. And he says, this is when you didn't know where they went. And Zulema says that's when she didn't know where they went. Her lawyer came in the clutch to rescue her. Her lawyer says it's not like they were saying for Zulema and Alex to move to Hawaii, more like visiting. The other investigator said they had conversations that after they got married, they were moving to Hawaii. Her lawyer says with Zulema, and the investigator nods and says also with Melanice. And again, the investigator says, you told Gilbert you didn't know where they were. You don't know how to get a hold of Lori, and you've only met Lori a couple of times. Do you see what I mean? There's a discrepancy. And Zulema agrees. The investigator said that. The investigator says, that's why we want to know why you told Gilbert this stuff. Her lawyer says before we get into all that, he doesn't want Zulema to say anything about having potentially misled Gilbert PD before he hears the statement she gave. And he said, I think what she's told you guys is the truth. That's what the agreement was, that she would come in, tell you guys the truth. So there's a discrepancy between the two. The investigator says they want to get in front of it before the trial and figure out if you did make that statement, why. So her lawyer asks her, do you remember making that statement? And she says, no. I remember going to the hospital, them putting me in one ambulance, and they took Alex in another ambulance. They started working with him, and they put me in a room, and I don't remember much between that and when they brought me back to the room for me to turn off the machine for him. I don't remember when I was taken back there. I don't remember the person who came to talk before or after that, and I can't put it together. I don't even remember the name or the person who was there or what he looked like. There's nothing right there. I remember when I turned off the machine, someone came and said I couldn't touch him anymore because he was considered a crime scene and I needed to leave. I asked for a couple of minutes with him and they gave me a few moments with him. And I remember coming out of the room and my son-in-law came and said to someone, we are going to get a lawyer, speak to our lawyer. And I remember leaving. So on that body cam footage is all blurred out, but I do have that on the YouTube. I'll throw that link in the description of today's episodes. You can see, kind of the comings and goings. There were so many people in there. And you really do see the one thing I didn't point out about the body cam footage at the house and the hospital, these cops that were just standing watch over the house and the emergency room, you could tell they realized something big was going on with this case. They kind of silently talk amongst themselves. There was a bigwig coming to that house that normally I assume doesn't come out for just random deaths. So they all picked up pretty quickly that something major was at play here. They ask if she's been to Rexburg or Idaho since, and she says no. Her lawyer walks out of the room to take a call, so they talk weather in Rexburg, and Zulema said it was cold the last time she was there. The investigator asks about the bag of cash that Alex gave Zulema and asks when he gave that to her. She said he didn't necessarily give it to her, but a couple of days before he died, he told her, if anything happens to me, I want you to know there's a bag of cash for you in the closet. It's not much, but it's for you. And I'm going to tell you, I think he knew he was going to die. I think he knew it was coming, and I don't think he knew it was coming in a natural. I'm sorry, y'all. I'll say it every time. Too much of a coinky dink. So they asked if she counted the money, and she said after he died, they asked the police to bring the bag down, and her daughter and son-in-law counted it, and it was between $5,000 to $7,000 or something like that, she said. When asked if anything else was in the bag, she said she still has the bag. The money was in a Ziploc inside the bag, and she said she's looked through it a lot, but for the life of her, she can't remember what was in there. She thinks for a while, it's kind of quiet. She said maybe a pair of headphones was in there, and she said she could take a look. Her lawyer asked if she's taking anything out of that bag, and she said the headphones so she could use them. The investigator asked if she took anything else out, and she said it's possible. And she asked if she should have been looking for something, and the investigator says he's wondering because they had reports there were other things in there. Zulema says, like what? And he says, well, there was a gun associated with the bag of money. She says, oh, okay, is that what you're asking for, the guns? The guns were in separate bags, not in the bag of money. And she said the guns were in a case and they had the clips in the bag. He asks again what was in the duffel bag with the money. Then he says, let me ask you this. Was there a phone in the duffel bag? And she says, yeah, I think that's where they found a phone because they took a phone because it was in the inventory sheet that they left with her of what they had taken. And she doesn't know exactly where they found that phone. He asks if she went through the bag before her kids did, and she said no. He asks about Alex saying, if something ever happens to me regarding the bag was an odd statement. And he wants to know if that was an odd statement to her. And she said, I said, don't say things like that, Alex. Why would you say something like that? And Alex said, just in case. And Zulema said in the back of her mind, she wondered if he did something to himself, saying that 2 days before he died. You and all of us, Zulema. She said he told her this either the day before he died or the day before that. So the investigator wants to talk to her about the conversation she had with Alex when Tammy's body was being exhumed. He asks if she remembers saying to Alex, are you going to have anything to do with this? Why would you think he may have something to do with this? And she said Lori and Chad had called that day, and they were the ones who told Alex that they were exhuming Tammy. The way they were talking, they weren't saying they were worried or anything like it was more of a feeling that Zulema had that this was really weird. And shouldn't they be reacting different and not so nonchalant about it? And she was wondering, are they hiding something? Did they do something? She said she knew if she had asked Lori and Chad about anything, they wouldn't say. But she thought if they had been doing something or he did something, Alex would most likely tell her. And she asked him if they exhumed this body, are they going to find anything? And he said no. But Zulema says she doesn't know if that's true or not. The investigator says if a friend of his wife called and says one of her friends is being exhumed, that wouldn't be a question. I would ask my wife, did you have anything to do with this? Wouldn't even cross his mind. In other words, you're asking Alex, did you have anything to do with this? So he's just pointing out that, Zulema immediately thinks, did you have something to do with this? Which I think she just knew a lot more. That's why I wanted to expand on this with you. Why do you think maybe Chad and Lori had done something to Tammy, or maybe Alex had known about something or had done something? And Zulema says she remembers then saying Tammy had become a zombie. She doesn't remember who said what, but Alex was always like, I was told, or Lori would say, I was told, and then Chad would say very little, and it was kind of hard to tell who the information was coming from. They were saying Tammy was supposed to die on her trip to Utah. Remember the one she took with her up to see her parents, very short trip. I think Chad said, her grandma came to him in a vision. And then Chad had a vision Tammy would die in a car accident. And when she didn't die on the trip, Chad and Lori said she actually did pass away, but was taken over by an evil spirit and had become a zombie. Isn't that convenient, y'all? Zulema said in the back of her mind, she thought they were saying the same things about Charles, and he ended up being shot. She said she thought you guys aren't going to do something to people who are turning into zombies. The investigator asked what was Alex's response to her question about Tammy and if he had anything to do with it. And she said he sat back and pressed his head against the headboard and said no. And he said nothing else after that. She said she was waiting for him to say something else, and she asked if he was going to say anything else after that, and he said no. She said he seemed very sure with his answer, and she pressed for more, so she stands up and starts to walk away, and Alex says, I think I'm being their fall guy. Zulema said the fall guy for what, and he wouldn't say anything else, which we've heard that statement. That's been something that has been something I've been thinking about. Now, we know he murdered Charles. I've always said we don't know for sure who murdered the kids. We know who murdered Tammy. I mean, for the most part, Chad got the charge. But I think that's a very interesting statement. Either he was covering his evil deeds, or do we learn at trial that maybe Alex didn't physically kill anybody? I don't know. We know he was involved, but that's always been a very interesting statement to me. So she said she got frustrated and goes to walk away, and he says to her, either I'm a man of God or I am not. And she asked him, what does that mean? And he said she was frustrated and mad because he wasn't saying anything else. She said they're probably telling him through blessings to do certain things, and maybe his mind was thinking either I'm following what God is telling me to do, or essentially he's following Chad and Lori. The investigator asked, after he said that about being their fall guy, do you think Chad and Lori had something to do with Tammy's death? And she said she didn't know what to think at the time. It was so confusing for her because she saw Chad and Lori as very spiritual, kind, loving, charming, law-abiding, God-fearing people. That is laying it on super thick, y'all. All right, so we're going to pause real quick for our paid sponsor of the week, BetterHelp. That's H-E-L-P, help. So we talked about this the last couple of weeks. We try to solve every little problem on our own. And when we're sick, we go to the doctor. We want to improve the problem we're having. We want to feel better. We need to treat our brain and our mental health the exact same way. When we have problems that are consuming, we need help. So a therapist can help you become a better problem solver, making it easier to accomplish your goals no matter how big or how small. So what can you get from therapy? You can unload your stress, emotional healing, help with anxiety and depression. And I think the benefit is an outsider who can see our problems at their core without emotional attachment is able to give us tips that are effective and work without attaching emotions to it. A lot of times we go to our friends or our family. They're emotionally invested in your problems. So this gives the therapist the knowledge of how to guide you to find ways to deal with life's problems that you likely won't figure out on your own, and you'll just make things worse going over and over in your brain. How do I do this? How am I going to fix this? So if you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is an amazing option. It's convenient, accessible, affordable, and entirely online. As you know, you can do video conference, you can do chat online or phone conversations. Get matched with a therapist after filling out a brief survey and switch therapists at any time. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. So visit betterhelp.com/whattheworld today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/whattheworld. Appreciate their supporting of this podcast, and I'm very proud to be working with them. Mental health is such an important part of our everyday life. We have to take care of ourselves. Back to it. She said none of this stuff came together for her until she had months to process things and put things together in her mind. She said until they found JJ and Tylee's bodies, she thought they possibly had hidden them somewhere and were alive. I know in the beginning, we're getting to the 3-year anniversary of the kids' murders. Tylee's is later this week. I want to do a little mini episode just to honor her. The same with JJ. But the investigator said that's why they had hoped to, or that's what they had hoped to, is Zulema having time to reflect. And Zulema said, I really believed they had them hiding somewhere when she believed them. And when Lori said she was keeping them somewhere safe, I know Fruit Loop and I, when we started this podcast, we would go back and forth. And one day I would think there's no way these kids are alive. It's just, you don't have a teenager and a 7-year-old with autism just disappear and expect her to care for him 24/7, no phone, no financial transactions. And then I would go back and think maybe they are, in a bunker somewhere. it was so back and forth for us and just devastating on the day we learned the truth. But he asks on these conference calls with her, Chad, Lori, Melanice, and Ian, you guys talk about a code word to make sure it's safe to talk. And she remembers, and the day her and Alex were going to Vegas, when she got back from the spa, Alex wasn't in the house. So she calls and asks where he is. And he said he was in the walkway in the green field behind the house with Gib. And she says Melly, which is Melanice, not Gib. He told her to come meet them. So when she got to where they were making this code word to say when it's safe to talk and when it's not safe to talk. The code word was pretty bird. If it wasn't safe to talk, and not happy Bob if it was safe to talk.
Between aging and busy lifestyles, many women struggle with maintaining their physical and mental wellness. At Aquavita Concierge Healthcare Services for Women, we can help you revitalize your health and reclaim your life. We start from within by balancing your hormones, allowing your body to achieve and maintain desired weight goals. We also specialize in peptide therapies, regenerative medicine, sexual health, and aesthetics in our state-of-the-art facilities. Feel better, look better, live better at Aquavita. Visit aquavitality.com and begin your journey today.
Pretty bird. It reminds me of Dumb and Dumber, where they give, it's not something that's funny, but they give the little blind kid the dead bird and he's petting it and calling it Pretty Bird. And then not happy Bob. What about Bob? Anyways, he says they would call her with Ian's phone. And then he asks whose phone number she would call the conference with everyone. And Zulema said they had so many numbers, and the investigator says, yeah, they did. He says that's why they're trying to figure out whose phone she called to conference everyone in, because they would call Zulema and she would set up with the conference call. She thinks it was Chad's phone, and a couple of times it was Lori's new phone. She said she didn't think her phone records would go back that far, and her lawyer's like, yeah, they probably do. So the investigator says the conference calls were a couple of times to chat and a couple of times to worry. And Zulema said a lot of times they didn't answer. And she said they would ghost them and they would call one number, no answer. Call the other, maybe they would answer or call back. This is when they were in Hawaii. She thought they were in Utah, though, because there was a conversation where they were laughing because Lori had gotten stuck in her car in a storm and couldn't move. And she had to spend the night in her car until she could get through this storm. So Zulema thought it was a snowstorm and assumed Utah. Her lawyer says maybe she said that to put you off, and Zulema says it's possible. So sometimes Lori would say, for your protection, we're not telling you where we're at. He asked why she was always the one to set up the conference calls and not Ian or Melanice or anyone else. And she pauses for a minute and she says she doesn't know. There was no particular reason, and she wasn't designated as the setter-upper of the call. So the investigator asked if everyone in the group knew Chad and Lori's number, and she said at that time no, because she remembers one of the conversations they put Melanice on the phone, and Melanice was crying because they weren't answering her calls because one of the numbers wasn't working, and she hadn't talked to them since they had left Rexburg. And we touched on that in the last episode, where I think Melanice felt very lost when they went to Hawaii because she's moved to Rexburg. She's got this new husband that she barely knows. She doesn't have her kids. And I think she was so codependent on Lori that, it was bad for her. I mean, not that I feel bad for her, but you can see how she was feeling deserted, almost childlike, She said part of the manipulation and the way they indoctrined her in getting you to be part of this is needing them and being close to them. And it was their constant offering of a blessing or comfort, or an offering of a blessing promising you something. And she said it was almost as if you get that on a constant basis and then it stops all of a sudden and you feel like you have no guidance. And then you think too, Melanice is still in Rexburg. Lori's in Hawaii. Melanice has got, police kind of breathing down her neck and things like that. But Lori's does that. She unloads everything on other people and runs. So it's just very typical. The investigator asked when Melanice was in tears if Ian, Melanice, or Alex asked her for Lori or Chad's numbers, and she said they had their numbers too. She thinks it was given to Melanice during one of the conference calls. She didn't realize her setting up the conference calls was a pattern until the investigator brought it up. She said one of the things they told her from the beginning was that putting her in a position of being so special, and that Lori and Chad would tell her often that her mission was the most important one, and they had to take care of her more than anyone else. It's kind of that love bombing, giving Zulema this feeling of grandeur, of being above people. And he asks if Chad and Lori were directing her to marry Alex, and she said they were suggesting it and saying they should be together. Chad gave her a blessing saying she would marry again, and Zulema said, I don't know about that, but she has a feeling that they were saying that to Alex as well. The investigator asked if they told her part of her mission was to marry Alex. She said the way they presented that was in order to finish their mission. You always need someone that was going to be equal in spirituality and equal to them to help complete that mission. And they would say, Alex would be part of that for you and help you with your mission. And he would be your supporter in your time of need. So Zulema wasn't sure if she believed she had to marry Alex to complete her mission. She took their word for what they were saying, though. And they would ask her to do something, and she would say a prayer, and Chad and Lori would say, Zulema, this is what you did. And she would wonder if she was really doing any of this, like creating the storms or earthquakes. She said she had a lot of things in her mind where she said she didn't know all about this. She just didn't know, she's trying to do what Melanie Gibb did, which is go back and say, yeah, I wasn't so sure, but I was definitely trying to blind Charles with a light, essentially, with JJ in the car and all that hogwash. She said she would tell Chad or Lori sometimes, I'm putting that on a shelf until I can understand it. She said she kept praying about Alex, and he was there from the beginning saying he wasn't messing around. He wanted to get married, and he was insistent. And she told Alex to wait. She didn't have an answer yet. She said, I have my doubts. Let me put it that way. She said once they got to know each other better, she spent time with him. She really started to like him. And she said what she liked most about Alex was that she could have deep, deep conversations with him about scriptures. And she said he knew scriptures very well. Sometimes they would be on the phone for hours discussing scripture. And she said she has never been able to do that with anyone, especially someone who is interested in her. So Zulema, when she went to Rexburg October 7th, Alex was ready to get married then. And he had called another county where you could go get married quickly, kind of like Vegas, just get it done in a day. And she said she told him she wasn't 100% sure, so she needed to wait. And he said they could wait as long as they needed to. She said he was not pressuring her at that point. When he was coming back to Arizona from Rexburg for Thanksgiving, the day before he arrived, she was praying and asking. And she said she got this feeling, okay, I think it's time for me to marry him. The investigator from Fremont asks if she thought Alex was pressuring her because Chad and Lori wanted him to get married to her, and she said that's definitely possible. And then she was asked if she thought Alex really loved her or if it was more because Chad and Lori told him to marry her. She said, I don't know if someone can fake it that well. If she didn't love someone, I don't know if I could be doting over someone. And if he could fake it, he's a really good faker. She said he doted over her, and she said maybe they told him to fake it, but from the minute he woke up until he went to bed, he made sure she was happy and made sure she was taken care of. She says one time she told him salsa and chips would be good, and he got up, grabbed his keys, and said he would be back, and then he went and got her what she wanted. He would say, quote, as you wish, all the time. The Fremont investigator asked if she really loved him when they got married, and she said yes, she loved him very much. He says when Alex was at the hospital and her son-in-law said while there that if Chandler or Gilbert PD wanted to talk, they would have to talk to her attorney, and he asked why she needed an attorney at that time. Then he asks if the attorney was for her or for Alex. She said she didn't feel she needed an attorney, but her son-in-law felt she did. When she got home, the police tried to interrogate her again and said they would separate her and her kids, and her son-in-law called and said, your attorney will call the police officer who took her to his car. That was one thing too. A police officer did take Zulema to a car to talk to her later that night. He told Zulema to get out of the car and to tell her kids not to answer any more questions, and they needed to talk to her attorney from now on. A Fremont investigator asked why he thought she needed an attorney, and she said he had a really bad experience with the police just prior to that, and he didn't trust the police. It's weird to me, though. He was so insistent, and like his bad experience is not her bad experience, and it sounds to me like, you wonder what all did some of these people in her family know. I just don't know. He asked if she had any other phones when she would talk to Lori, Chad, Melanice. And she says the reason the reason he's asking is there's burner phones everywhere, and we know that. I've heard up to 60 or so. She said no. Then she says, wait, I did get a phone the day Alex died because the police took hers and she needed one. And then she was asked, when would you need code words, and why did Chad and Lori think they were necessary? And she says, you're working with Kay, seeking their destructions. And she says they, meaning the police, were a high-level 6 dark person, and they needed to have protection because they were saying the kids were safe and in a safe place, and in order for the kids to stay safe, since investigators were such dark people. So the Fremont investigator asked Zulema to look at her phone and see if she can find a phone number. He says she may know who this belongs to, and she says nothing comes up, but she thinks it's part of Alex's number. She says her granddaughter got the phone she had during everything, and she didn't know her old phone was connected to the Wi-Fi, and it will show up on your new phone. She said her granddaughter deleted hundreds and hundreds of phone numbers. Isn't that convenient? He asks if she has Chad in her phone, and she says she had one phone he kept all the time, and she looks in her text and calls out a phone number to the investigators. We know Chad went by the name Raphael. He asks if that rings a bell, and she says yes. She said he changed a number, and Alex asked her for it. She gives the number he had, and that was the number they had just asked for. He got this new number the first week in December of 2019. Chad told her about it December 4th, and Alex asked for that phone number on December 5th. The investigator said Chad went by Raphael and asks if she called him Chad or Raphael, and she says Chad. He says in one text, she says Raphael is calling through and she needed to go. He asked if it was sometimes she called him that, and she said yes. Alex used to call him that a lot, so if she was used to it, it would have been when Alex was with her that she referred to him as Raphael. She said on December 6th, Alex went and got pizza for everyone, and on December 7th, he went to Mexico to get the prescriptions. The investigator says he appreciates her talking because he knows that she hates it, and she said she wants to help. He says he doesn't know what the defense will do at trial and says they may try to throw everybody under the bus. He says that's why it's so important if she remembers anything that they can get out in front of to let them know. Zulema says she still has a pair of Lori's scissors at her house. The investigator says the ones that cost over $100, and she says they were over $1,000. Now, Lori was a hairstylist. Some of those professional scissors can cost that much. She said she always thought there was something nefarious about Lori giving her those scissors. Lori gave them to her when they got back from getting married in Hawaii. She said when they were in Vegas, she talked about Alex being a massage therapist. And he said, I'll give you a massage and fix your back. For some strange reason, he got this plastic to put on the bed so the oil didn't get on the bed. And she said it was the kind you use when you paint. She said the weirdest thing is she fell asleep because she was so relaxed, and she remembers him being in and out, and he was talking to someone. She said, Alex, who are you talking to? And he said, nobody, talking to myself. Then she said, let's watch a movie, and he was on the phone playing a game very quietly, and it was eerie because he's usually joking around all the time. He says nothing the rest of that evening. And Zulema says, maybe I'm crazy with all the stuff that happened, but she said in the back of her mind, she keeps thinking, what if she was next? The investigator said, very well could have been. He asked how she felt when she woke up after that massage, and she said she felt really drowsy, and this was in the middle of the afternoon. The investigator asked if Alex made her drink anything or eat anything before that, and says she doesn't remember, maybe a water or something. And she said the amount of oil he used did not justify using the plastic, a whole drop cloth over the bed. That's so creepy. Y'all, that's. Ugh. She said the fact he said nothing and was so quiet after, that's not him. He isn't quiet. He told her he was just tired. She never asked him about it, and at the time she didn't think anything of it because she trusted him. This was the day after they were married that this happened, and that's the only time that happened, and he hadn't massaged her before or after that. She said he would massage her shoulders, but not like this. And she said he also would massage other people's shoulders too. And I find that very creepy when like somebody just comes up behind me and like massages my shoulders, unless it's like my kid. The investigator said it's little things like that that they're interested in. He said even things like that seem small, let her lawyer know as it comes to her. He asked when she woke up that day, how did she feel? And she said she was so relaxed. She didn't feel out of it, just super relaxed. But she said the in and out of sleep on the bed was weird because she could hear Alex talking in the bathroom. She said he didn't talk to himself, but in this case, he was having a full-blown conversation. She said after a year of processing this, there was no way to put the drop cloth, or no reason to put the drop cloth on the bed for a massage. And the investigators asked if they talked about life insurance and if they added each other. And she said no. She said they were in town until Saturday, and she gave them the scissors. She would give them the scissors for evidence if they needed them. And, the investigator said they are in town until Saturday and asked for the scissors, and she agrees to give them to the investigators. They ask if she has any questions for them, and she says she has a lot of questions about their sanity. She said they're led by evil, and she had a feeling they had evil plans to do something to her and Alex. She thought she was the final key to Rexburg, and she feels by the grace of God she didn't move there. She wonders if Alex had a relationship with her because Chad and Lori told him to, and also if maybe they told him to kill her that day, but he couldn't go through with it. That's an interesting theory, really. She said it's hard to believe he would kill himself. And but you go back to that, the whole thing with the drop cloth is weird. And if she's in and out, we all have had theories. They've drugged people, they drugged Tammy, maybe drugged the kids. And he was quiet that day. So we'll never know. Zulema believes she was under the protection of an angel called Porcius. Oh gosh, I probably butchered it. Let me know, y'all. Who is the deceased president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, David McKay. Zulema would go to temple daily to do work and prepare the earth. Afterwards, Zulema would text Chad and Lori about visions she would have and ask Chad what they meant. She would also ask Chad to check on her family members or people close to her. We've been through that in text. Chad would often label men as dark, and he told her a man she was dating was dark and placing cages around her. Zulema broke up with the man, and later Chad said he was told by God she was to marry Alex and move to Rexburg. When they stayed in Arizona after their marriage, Alex said he was just going to let all of his stuff go in Arizona, and they kind of wrap up the interview after this. So, a few little nuggets in there. I really do think maybe they were telling Alex to kill Zulema. She knew too much. If you look at it, at that point, when this happens, so many things are going on. They know the police are hot on their trails. It's known the kids are missing. Tammy's being exhumed. The walls are closing in. Well, what do? You get rid of anybody who could testify at your trial against you, like Zulema's doing. Just a theory. Who knows? But anyways, I'm going to be working on merchandise all day, and also the new interface for YouTube, working with a software called OBS. It's very confusing and hard to set up, but I think it's going to be super cool when I can get it done. It's going to add so much to this YouTube broadcast. Anyways, tomorrow, Pike County Massacre trial, George Wagner IV starts. 2 hours of openings expected for each side. Right now, there is a motion to ban the public from the trial. It's not clear whether they mean in person or cameras. It's not going to fly, I don't think. So tomorrow's episode, we're going to be talking openings in the Wagner trial. And hope you'll join us. It's going to be very, very crazy, I think, to find out how from beginning to end they planned and executed 8 family members in one night. And there's just so many questions. Those of us who have followed this for 6 years, by the way, talk about the long road to justice, 6 years. The father of Dana has died in the process, never got to see justice. Jake and Angela will be testifying against George, mom and brother. It's going to be something to watch. So follow along, you guys. I'll be tweeting out that link, Facebooking the link every day if you want to watch live. If you can't, every night I'll sum it up for you, the best parts. I will also tweet out in Facebook anything that's kind of big, but I'm not going to continuously tweet this trial like I do some that are going to be shorter. So, all right, guys, we'll see you tomorrow. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing to keep the Grinch away from the toy drive.
Who's going to deliver the toys to the kids?
What about me, the Grinch?
No.
Yep, even easier than that.
You steal the presents one time.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Capital One NA, member FDIC. Copyright Dr. Seuss Enterprises. Copyright Turner Entertainment Company.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.